Okay, we are live. We're live. Welcome,
Okay,
guys.
now.
Welcome. Welcome to Wife After Prison. Uh, Come on in. When you come in, let us know where you're joining from. Share, share, share. Share this out. I am going to share it to my Facebook group, my private group. And so, my guests, if you guys want to share it out to your page, this is going to be a good live. I've been thinking about this live for weeks. So today is the day. We're going to be talking about same behaviors, different zip codes. So as you guys come in, let us know where you're joining from, whether you're joining us from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Let us know what state, what city you're joining us from. Just come on in. Make sure you share it out. Share, share, share. Sharing is caring. This is some information that no one is excluded from this conversation. So make sure you share it out. Let me see. I want to share it out to my page. I see someone has joined us here. We're going to share it out and then we are going to get started with the conversation at hand. I'm super, super excited. I don't even know if this was the Tuesday that we normally do it once a month, but I had just gotten back to back DMs, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna have a live, So I just called Mataka and hit up Miss Tammy and Andrew. Okay, Tito is here, letting him in. I just hit them up and say, hey, would you guys join me? So, okay, I see Ro is here from Raleigh. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Miss Ro from LinkedIn. You guys come on in and share this out because without a doubt, I know that there's going to be some information shared that will enlighten you and hopefully encourage you as well. We got Dr. Tammy in the house, and she is the encourager for sure. Yeah, you guys, I see Long Island, New York is in the house. You guys come on in and share the information. Tennessee is in the house. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys share, especially if you are, someone who has a loved one who is incarcerated. Please, please tag them in, call them up on the phone and say, hey, get on Wife After Prison platform, whether it's YouTube. How you doing, Mr. Bill? Whether it's YouTube, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook. Again, this is a conversation for everybody. No one is excluded from this conversation. So again, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Thank you so much to my returning guests. I always, can count on them when I call them to say, hey, we need to educate the people. We need to educate the people. And so I'm going to give my guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. My name is Sheila Bruno. For those who don't know,
Can y'all hear me?
we can. We can hear you. Founder of Wife After Prison. Wife After Prison was established in 2018 to raise awareness of what's known as post-incarceration syndrome. Post-incarceration syndrome is a set of mental disorders that affect those who are currently incarcerated, those released most severe, and those who have spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. Excuse me. I started the conversation in 2018, and as a matter of fact, I was thinking today. I said Kevin and I in 2000. It was in 2018 when we did our first video when we got online and we began to talk about and share our story, and that's when the floodgates start coming open. Me too, me too. It was like another Me Too movement. So I'm going to see if I can find that video and play it back because, again, it was something new to us. When it hit our marriage, we said, we got to talk about this. And I'm so glad that we started the conversation back in 2018. And then when we started it, uh, I felt at times, like I was we were just on an island by ourselves because it wasn't well received. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It was like, shh, don't talk about that. Or what's she talking about? She don't know what she's talking about. But I kept talking. And so it makes 5 years that we've been having the conversation. And I'm so glad today that post incarceration syndrome has become somewhat of a buzzword, right? So we're going to keep talking about it. It's getting into rooms. I had a message from someone in the parole office in Florida. She heard me speak in April at a conference in April, and she sent me a message, and she said that it was enlightening to her, and it has changed the way that she deal with her clients. And so she's also informing family members about post incarceration syndrome and sending them to Life After Prison so that they can be further educated. So I'm so excited, and I'm so happy that people are coming to system impacted citizens. Man, I had a guy reach out to me today and say, "Hey, man, I've been to prison." He said, "I'm on parole for the rest of my life." He said, "My wife needs to understand, and I'm going to get a copy of your book so that she can understand." Just now on LinkedIn, I had somebody to reach out and say, "Hey, I want to connect. I'm incarcerated and believe you're giving voice to such a profound topic that very few understand." And so this is what this platform is about, understanding. And I really want family members to understand, because family members are being so hurt. They're so hurt. Some are so broken because they did not see this coming. They didn't see the behavior coming, as I did. I did misresearch everything. I didn't research this. Asked Kevin a whole lot of questions before we got married, but it's one question I did not ask. I did not ask, did prison affect you? Were you affected by your prison sentence? That's one question that I did not ask. And I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to give my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. But I want to really tell the family members, yeah, man, you don't understand the behaviors. I get it. I didn't understand the behaviors, right? Kevin and I went through the divorce and all of that. But it was when I gained an understanding that I couldn't be mad at that brother. I couldn't be mad at it, right? Initially, I was, because I had an ideal life before we got married. Did a whole lot of traveling and just doing my thing. And then I was like, how dare you come into my life and disrupt my life like this? But it was when I gained an understanding. I couldn't be mad at I couldn't be mad at it. We're divorced today, but we're friends. So I just want the family members to really understand. I had a woman, a wife, to say, "I hate him." She said, "I hate what he has done to my life." So family members, you have to gain an understanding. So without further ado, I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves. I just want to say a little about them. Let me Tito back in. So three of the guests here have been to prison, and Dr. Tammy has worked for the Department of Corrections. But we're gonna tie it all together. Same behaviors, different zip codes. So without further ado, Dr. Tammy, you want to introduce yourself and let them know how long you worked in the prison system, how long you have been away from that industry, and then we'll get back to the other questions.
Thank you. My name is Tammy. I have been in corrections for the better part of 27 years. I walked away from corrections almost 3.5 years ago. And I can't tell you a lie. I absolutely loved what I did because I met some of the most phenomenal people that were broken during my course and my tenure with corrections. So that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, next guest, you want to tell a little about yourself? Tell us how long you were in prison and how long have you been out of prison?
Good evening, Adero. It's known as Andrew. I did 26 years and 8 months in the Departments of Corrections. I've been home. It'll be 11 years this October, 2013. I have an associate's degree in human services and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. a host of certificates, peer-to-peer crime counseling, motivational interviewing. I'm an advanced Toastmaster and blah, blah, blah. I've been a facilitator for the Fathers and Family Support Center as well for over 10 years, going on 11 years, dealing with men who are from reentry and also men that just need help with parenting classes and relationship issues and things like that.
All right, Tito Mataka.
Hey everyone, I'm Tito Guerrero. I was incarcerated for 12 years. Originally went in with a second degree murder, so I had a life sentence for the first 5 years. I got it overturned. Took a deal. I've been out just over 14 years now. Been bouncing around non-profit communities. I got a couple of degrees under my belt since I've been out. I opened a transitional living house, and I'm just really focused on ensuring that our brothers and sisters coming out of incarceration, whatever I can do as far as motivating them, giving them the tools they need to succeed, and just trying to be a better person every day because I can't repay that debt.
All right, Mataka.
How's everybody doing? My name is Mataka Ascari. I did 23 and a half years in incarceration. Like my guys who've been incarcerated with me, I got a few accomplishments. I'm a certified peer specialist. I work with people who struggle with substance use and mental health. I facilitate batterer intervention, domestic violence classes. I'm trained in various forms of trauma, adverse childhood experiences, cultural trauma, transgenerational trauma, sanctuary trauma, just a bunch of different stuff. However, those things are great, but I feel like some of the most important things that I've accomplished have been outside of the scope of that type of information. I've just been blessed to learn the vernacular and be able to bring it over in a way that's relatable to people who may not be able to understand.
All right, thank you so much. So it was some years ago, I think maybe in 2019, I had a panel of 12 returning citizens. Their sentences ranged from 2 years to one of the, they had two life sentences. Was in the one of the worst prisons in Texas. And so I went around the room and I asked each of them at the time, and I think Mataka was one of the panelists. I asked each of them, were you affected by prison? And without hesitation, 11 of them said yes. But there was one, again, who was in one of the worst prisons here in Texas. For whatever reason, he was hesitant to say that he was. And only to call me 2 weeks later and say, how can I get a copy of your book? Because I need my lady friend to understand me. So I want to ask each of my panelists coming out, did you immediately realize or know if you were affected by prison, and how, if so, how so? And to Dr. Tammy, you working in the prison system, how did it affect you? If it affected you, and how so?
Um,
Anybody?
yes, I did not recognize that prison had affected me. I didn't realize that my conversations were aggressive. I didn't realize that I had failure to be intimate, to be accepting. Like I needed my space. Like my mother, my daughter, my grandkids. Like I just couldn't bond with them in the way that they wanted to be bonded with. Like affection was nowhere because it was invading my space, and they didn't realize that invading my space was an issue for me. And then with my significant other, when we had disagreements, I didn't realize how aggressive I was in my disagreement with her, arguing. And she's like, "Babe, I love you, like, and you talking to me like I'm somebody in the streets, like, you know." I didn't know what I'm saying. When I fight hard. So even in that, I didn't realize that that was a recourse from prison as well. To be always aggressive, to be always at that level of ready to fight, to ready to be battled with. So that affected a lot of my relationships post incarceration.
Right. And so before the next guest speak, so what Andrew just described was one of the behaviors of the antisocial deprivation trait. So post incarceration syndrome is a set. It's institutionalization personality trait, antisocial personality trait, social sensory deprivation, PTSD, and substance abuse. So there's 5 mental disorders that makes up the one post incarceration syndrome. So what he just described that behavior, antisocial deprivation. Okay. We in class tonight, y'all. We in class. We didn't come to play. We come to educate you, right?
That's right. That's right. Teach, Ms. Bruno, teach.
Yeah, and not so that you can look at your family members and, oh, this is antisocial. No, 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 no. No, we're not pointing fingers. We're being educated. So hopefully you will be able to educate them, right? So that's the behavior. Andrew, what zip code you live in?
I'm in St. Louis. I'm in 63107.
Okay. All right. So Mataka, tell us what zip code you is and tell us did prison affect you?
I'm in 65202. I'm right up the street from Adero. We right up the street, like 2 hours up the street.
Okay, well tell us it affected you, which I know it did, but tell the people.
Which way you want to pick? I didn't even realize picks was like that I didn't even realize it. I just knew that when I came home, I was experiencing some stuff right that wasn't right. And so I wasn't able to put a name to it. It was none of that. I tell people about the incidents all the time. One of the ones that was extremely important for me that was a wake-up call was when my daughter's mom and I were at the theater. I've told this multiple times, and I had just gotten out. Matter of fact, Adero next month, 5 years home, brother. Man, I ain't been free for 5 years since I was literally an adolescent.
Wow.
Literally, and I'm 10 since I was 10.
We celebrate you.
Oh yeah, it's all good. I'm gonna celebrate it with my daughter.
Okay.
So we went in the movie theater. It was hot still. I'd been home less than a month. We went to watch the movie at Night School with Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart. So we go in the theater. My daughter's mom want to sit in the middle row. Oh, I ain't used to this. Prison is all about safety. Safety is all about position and perspective. You need to be able to scan everything so that you can feel at ease. That's a necessary requisite. When you go out on the yard, when you go into the child hall, it's a way of life. So I go into a situation that I'm unfamiliar with. She sits in the exact middle. It's danger all around me. My spider sense is tingling. So my natural instinct is to scan the room. I'm looking for potential threats. And this is something you said, Adero. Sometimes, man, when our brain is triggered, it don't make no difference who we arguing with. We just go into survival mode, right? And whoever in front of us get it. They say that I always got to win by 30. Meaning that I'm trying to, and I grew up like that, right? Because to put your opponent in a submissive position means you don't have to worry about it later, right? We grew up in that type of environment. And so when we were in the movie theater, I'm looking around and I see some guys with some hoodies on. Now, mind you, it's like 90 degrees outside. So naturally, this is a cause for concern for me. So I'm looking and I'm constantly looking at them. They laugh and enjoying the movie, everybody except me, because my hypervigilance is heightened. I feel like something is about to happen. So finally, I get enough and I done fed myself so much. And I turn to my daughter's mom and I'm like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but these guys over here, they got hoodies on and it's hot outside. It's about to be a theater shooting or something. I said, why they got these hoodies on? She looked at me and said, it's cold in here.
Mm-hmm.
Man, y'all don't even have no idea how, like, my physiological response, right, to potential danger or what I thought had blocked off my ability to feel the cold because I was in that fight or flight mode. And so my body was prepared for a heightened interaction with the environment. My adrenaline went up. I wasn't paying no attention to no cold. That, and Miss Bruno, another thing, like I had trouble sleeping, the inability to fall asleep and stay asleep. Man, listen, I used to get up all times of the night, checking the doors and the windows multiple times throughout the night because it sounds that I heard coming from the other side of the house and I can't see around corners. I'm paranoid. Remember, prison, the lesson of prison is safety and security is the first order of the day. You trained like that. And so when I hear sounds that I'm unfamiliar with coming from around a place I can't see, and you know, houses make sounds. So I'm up 3 and 4 times, all times of the night, checking windows and doors that I locked multiple times. And so it became an issue for me. And I still struggle with that sometimes, right? 5 years later, I still struggle when I hear a sound. It's a cause for concern. It might take me some time. Those are just 2 ways. I'm sure we'll delve off into it a little more.
And so what you just described is the sensory deprivation. Mataka, you kind of described the whole family of PICS: institutionalization, the antisocial, the sensory deprivation. You had kind of some of all of that. You what I would say was full blown, because sometimes a person that's coming out of prison, they just may experience one of those mental disorders, and then there's sometimes they're full blown, right? Say like a guy that a lady in one of my groups, her guy was getting ready to come out, and she posted something that she had received from him. He said, "Man, what am I going to do out here?" He said, "I've been in solitary confinement, guys. Listen at this." He said, "I've been in solitary confinement for 24 and a half years."
Man, antisocial personality traits.
Everything.
For sure.
Everything. He said, and they're walking me out the back gate still in shackles. 24 and a half years in solitary confinement. And so this is the thing. And see, family members, I'm coming for you. This is what I want you guys to understand. Because sometimes you haven't even asked the question, have you ever been in solitary confinement? How much time you did in the hole or whatever?
Miss Bruno, before Mr. Guerrero, just real quick, a lot of dudes still in solitary confinement out here internally because they suffer in silence. And so one of the things that we doing by raising awareness, because like me, so people will never know when I'm struggling. You got to really know me to know when I'm struggling, right? Because I'm used to not asking people for help. So a lot of times I'm guilty of what it is that I say other people shouldn't be doing, right? I suffer in silence. I got a lot of pride. I got a lot of information, but a lot of times I'm in my own solitary confinement internally. And I've realized that so many people suffer in silence, right? So one of the benefits of raising awareness is giving the family members the ability to identify those symptoms as they emerge from their family members who will not ask for help.
Yeah. Well, this is what we're doing. This is why we are identifying the symptoms, same behavior, different zip code. So Tito, tell us about your zip code and your experience.
Yeah, 60622. I gotta remember it. Chicago, Illinois. Now, originally from California. I could think of a ton of stories. I'm gonna just tell one to kind of paint a picture. This was probably 6 to 12 months after I was out, and I went out on a date with a young lady, and me trying to be a gentleman, allowing her to pick her seat and what table and everything. You know, she wanted to be in the middle of a restaurant and my back to everyone, and me trying to be nice. She kind of knew I had been in trouble, but not to what extent. And so I think she could kind of see it on my face, and she's all, you just seem tense. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, I'm not used to having my back to people, and I'm trying to be nice about it. And she goes, well, I know you got in trouble. And I was like, look, I was in prison for a long time, and this is not something I would never sit like this, but I'm trying to be nice. And she goes, well, to what extent? And I go, I'm listening to everyone, and I'm like keeping a picture in my head of what's behind me. So if something happens, I know what to do. And she goes, yeah, come on. And so she asked me, and this is a true story. She goes, well, if you're listening so much, tell me what people are talking about. And without turning around, I was like, he's talking about how we just got a job and he's so happy. This girl behind me is talking about how her 14-year-old daughter just started her period and she didn't know how to deal with it. And she was like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm listening to everyone because I want to know who might be a threat.
That's a survival skill.
Right? And I'm like, I need to know where I need to pivot and turn. And I know that there's exits on these two sides. I know the bar is behind me and there's people drinking. Right. So that's a threat. And like, she's like, oh my God, when did you do all this? And I said, as soon as we walked in, I had see where everything was. And I was like, and they got all the silverware over there. So I know there's knives and stuff. If I need to go get one, I'm like, it's just what I do.
That's that equalizer stuff. Prison made us equalizers. We got every tools on with spur.
Every time someone asks me what it's like, and I go, just watch the equalizer, that first bar scene when he goes in there. That's how we look in slow motion.
Yeah, that's exactly how we.
So what he just described also was the social sensory. His sensor.
Y'all say hi to my beautiful little baby too.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah. So this is why we talk, and I thought it was important that we break each of these symptoms and these behaviors down so you guys can understand. You can understand, and so you guys could really understand the impact that it's having on family members, because they do not understand post-incarceration syndrome. They do not understand the behaviors, right? Some of them take it personal. So I thought that it would be befitting that I would bring you guys some receipts from some people, how this is affecting them. And one of the things, going back to the solitary confinement and the different experiences, some experiences that your family members have had in prison or is currently having, you'll never know about. They ain't gonna tell you everything, but they're gonna act it out. You may not know what it is, but they're gonna act it out. So this is why it's so important that you guys get this information. So I'm just gonna, this is some receipts from family members on the behaviors of their loved ones who have come home. Different zip code, same behavior. Okay, so one says, my husband got out in October after 10 years, and we only made it until January when I couldn't do it anymore. From the beginning, it was rough, not going to sugarcoat it. We had a very short honeymoon stage, but after that, it was rough. Another one said, I'm screaming inside, hurting, disappointed, and angry. I became someone I didn't like due to his behavior. And now I'm to blame? Not. Letting go to find me again. Wasted time and energy. I'm more worthy. One said, he's been out of prison for 2 years and 8 months, and now I'm in therapy. Another one said, October marked 2 years since my husband has been home after 15 years, and it's definitely been a challenge. While he was incarcerated, I never thought we would separate 6 months of his 2 years of freedom. We went through a separation. We are now trying to reconcile and fix our marriage, but it's a challenge and adjustment. Mental health and PTSD are definitely real issues with a lot of men who are being released from prison. Lastly, my husband was in for 12 and a half years. We were together for 5 years pre-incarceration. He's been home for a little over a year, and it's been tough. If I tell him now how he makes me feel, I'm controlling. If I ask him a question, he says things like, you're not my warden. I find myself slipping into depression trying to figure this out. It's always a war of words. If I say anything to him, it's frustrating to him. So these are family members. But my thing is this too, because what I'm seeing also and what I'm hearing is family members. John, you got some noise on the background. Family members, system impacted citizens are coming home and literally running the house like it's the prison. They're running the house like it's the prison. You got a certain time, you got to take a bath or shower. You got a certain time that you got to go to bed, because that's what he's accustomed to. So he brings that over into the household and he expects you to do that, right? And so then you just do it because you want to keep the peace, but if that, you ain't ready to take a shower, you ain't ready to take a shower. Because what he is doing is unconsciously, he is bringing that prison behavior into the household. So you got to recognize that. And you guys have to address that. So let me ask this. This is another thing that I was talking about. Dr. Tim, you can help us with that. So, guys, going into prison, right? Did you have to become someone that you were not in order to survive? Did you have to, become this person? I'm not going to be taken advantage of. Ain't nobody going to mess with me. Put on this hard shell face or whatever. Did you have to become somebody that you were not in order to survive in prison?
Your cycle. Go ahead, Daryl.
For me, Ms. Bruno, like I said, like I went in at 17, and I always tell people like something has to click in your mind that I'm either going to survive or I don't know. And in the Missouri State Penitentiary, when you came in, it was a sign that said, "Leave all your hopes and dreams behind."
Wow.
So, and there's something like you just have to, something innately just kicks in. I've seen people come in there that's 4'11" and make it. Then some people come in there that's 6'5" and 6'6", and then they wearing, Kool-Aid lipstick the next day. So it's not the size, it's something innately just has to kick in to where you have to just buckle down within your soul and your spirit. It has to transform into something like, and it's more adaptive as you go. You know what I'm saying? It's more adaptive. So you do adapt to your environment. And for me, it wasn't even intentional. But
Okay.
but when a threat happens, I knew I had to immediately deal with that threat. You know what I'm saying? Or else leave all your hopes and dreams behind. And one of the guards said when I came in, some of y'all are going to be face down on cold concrete with something in your butt.
That's the reality.
And so something has to click in you to be like, no, not me. So you
Right.
adapt to your environment as you go on from year to year, from day to day, month to month, year to year, you adapt.
Wow.
And your psychological and emotional adjustments, because what you have to do is you have to start setting yourself up emotionally, because you can't afford to develop no relationships and no because you don't never know who out to get you,
Hold
right?
on. Yeah. Hold on.
So
You said you said the word emotional. We come
yeah,
to,
today
yeah. Hold
today
on.
they say that I'm incapable of forming deep emotional connections because I've set up safeguards.
Hold on.
Yes, ma'am.
Mataka, you must see my notes over here. Dr. Tammy. Dr. Tammy.
Dr. Tammy.
Tell me about you working in the system. You seeing an individual come in one way, and then did you per se see them transform into somebody that they weren't when you initially saw them, as far as behavior wise?
That's a very good question. Let me say this first before I segue into that. What you were talking about a few minutes ago, the reason why I'm shaking my head is because before 2011, post-traumatic stress was not even recognized for correctional staff. It was not a thing. Medicaid, Medicare, no medical bill would pay for a correctional officer that was put into a traumatic situation to go and get help. So as I listen to these guys talking, I'm sitting here and I'm smiling because all of that was me.
Wow.
And it's still me. I don't go anywhere that I cannot position myself to see my surroundings. My back is always against the wall. I'm not in a rush to do anything. You can run, but I'm a walk and I'm a survey. If I go to a restaurant, I can tell you how many steps it is to the nearest exit. I never sit with my back to a door. When I'm talking to people that I don't know, I'm always talking to them in interview stance, because this right here is a quick way for me to go to defense mode.
Yeah.
But I say all of that to say this. I recognized it early because of the things that I saw. I came from growing up on a farm. I didn't see violence. I knew racism, but I didn't see violence because everybody knew the line that was in the sand. Yeah, you knew your neighbors were racist, but they knew not to step over that line, because the same action they gave was the same action they were going to give. So when I entered into the correctional facility, first of all, in North Carolina, women were not welcomed. So I entered in at a time that a woman won a lawsuit for women to be able to work in corrections. That's number one. Number two, I entered in during that time and they said, well, since you're here, then
Wow.
you need to be as we are. So I was told I couldn't smile. I was told you're going to be just as bitter as we are, because smiling is not, this is not the environment for it. So when you talked about contorting or having to fit in, I did it for a while, because if you, as a Black female working in a male dominated culture, number one, working in a facility that was male dominated inmates, if you smiled, then you were easy. If you smiled, then you were too nice. If you smiled, then you were inmate friendly and nobody had your back. So I know what it is to work in an environment where I gotta watch my back, because the male counterparts that I'm working with don't have my back, because they don't want me there anyway.
Wow.
So I experienced everything that everybody in here was talking about. I experienced it. I know what it feels like. I hear sometimes some incarcerated people say, formerly incarcerated people, you don't know what it is to be incarcerated. Yes, I do. I was there 12 hours a day. Oh, but you got to go home. But my mind didn't. The pressures that I felt, the anxiety that I felt, the things that I saw behind the wall, the people that I saw die at my feet, not just inmates, but staff too. The violence that I incurred because I was there to do my job, I experienced it too. So I had to get mental health help, because nobody acknowledged that I had post-traumatic stress by seeing someone get beat within inches of their life and it looked like a war zone. I didn't come from that. So how am I supposed to process it? And they tell you what happens on MCON stays on MCON. So if I'm being a female, the only female working on MCON, that means maximum control. And I want to cry, then I got my counterparts not wanting to cover my back. I know what it is to be set up. I know what it is to have people to threaten my life, and I've done nothing wrong. So when you were talking to them, that's why I was sitting here doing this, because I've been there and I've done that. Now, to segue to what you asked me, the question that you asked me, I've seen a lot of people come in and they morph into who they have to be. I'm not going to say that's who they are, but they morph into who they have to be, because there's a culture within a culture. And as a correctional staff member, I had to learn that. And I didn't learn that from inmates. I learned that from convicts. There's a difference.
Tell them what the difference is. Tell them what the difference is.
Inmates are going to try to woo you, slay you, fool you, get you, and get you to fall in love with them, to bring them in whatever it is that they want, because it's a game. But a convict doesn't want to be bothered. They just there to do their time. And if a convict tells you they're going to do something, you can mark your calendar. You can mark your time, because if they say they're going to do it, they're people of their word. When I started in corrections, convicts didn't talk to correctional staff by themselves because they never wanted to appear as being snitches. They always brought somebody else with them that when they spoke to you could verify what they were saying, because it is a dishonor and a discredit for a convict to be counted as a snitch. An inmate doesn't care. An inmate will get intel information and tell it all day long. Drop a note. Hey, Miss Mac, how you doing? Slide me a note all day long. But a convict, never. Because when they say they're going to do something, their word is their bond. The first time I ever encountered a convict, it was Mr. James Smith. He's dead and gone, rest his soul. But that young man came to me and I was new, 3 days on the job. And he said, you better get that young buck because at 12 o'clock he'll be dead. I didn't know any better. I'm 3 days old in corrections. We didn't carry anything but radios back then. We didn't have pepper spray. We didn't have batons. You needed to know respect. You learned respect when I started. And when the sergeant came around, I said, oh, he said, how you doing, Miss Mack? I said, oh, la, 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 la. I said, oh, by the way, Mr. Smith said that young buck turned that television, and at 12 o'clock, if he ain't off this block, he's going to be dead. Every sergeant and lieutenant in that building came running to my post with that inmate off the post because that convict's word was his bond. So I came up in a culture of respect. You learned respect, they gave you respect, and you gave respect. I had to transition down through the years to morph with the culture that changed, but it didn't change me.
Wow.
It's all about respect for me.
So Tammy, you pretty much, and we can't get off into that, but it was the vicarious trauma that attached itself to you because you saw so many traumatic experiences. And so it was with me in the household, dealing with what I was dealing with, what Kevin was dealing with attached itself to me. So that's how I ended up, in the state that I was in mentally, right? So there is the vicarious trauma thing, right?
It's vicarious and direct. It's both of them because we lived in those environments, observed it, and as a result of that, we were directly impacted. We are experiencing vicarious and direct trauma at the exact same time. So it's more than you just taking on somebody else's stuff, right? You being impacted by it because you directly involved in it. So your trauma is starting to occur too, whether it's coming through the person or it's coming from the person.
Right. So this is the deal, y'all, and then we're gonna give John an opportunity to say some things. But this is the deal. This is the purpose of this, because I have talked to women this week whose guys have gotten out, and they was like, that post incarceration syndrome thing, that ain't for me, and that ain't happening, and he good and all of that. And I done got to the place, well, I just smile because I know you're going to call me. And they have called me this week, right? So I want you guys to understand that this is real. The same guy that you were visiting in the visitation room, the same guy that you had the 15-minute phone call with, will not be the same, will have different behaviors when they come home. Right? They have different behaviors when they come home. But sometimes we get so blinded. And this is the deal, and I've said it before. Well, he told me he was going to do this and he was going to do that, and now he ain't doing that. He doesn't know what he doesn't know until he get out the back gate. It's time for you guys to open your eyes to understand that a person that has been in a cage, a box, a dorm with hundreds of people for days in at a time, a person who has been in solitary confinement, do you really think that they're going to come out and they're going to be okay? Open your eyes. Read. Educate yourself so that you'll know what you did it with.
As you said, Miss Bruno, sometimes we don't even know. That's why it's called post-incarceration syndrome. We don't know until after we get out.
Right,
You don't even know
right,
something going on.
right, right. But I see so many family members and so many, one chick told me, he have read 100 and something books and da, da, da. And I said, that means he's intellectually sharp, baby. But you can't tell me nothing about the psychological part of what he's going through. So we make excuses.
Can I
But ignorance
give?
is expensive. Yeah, ignorance is expensive. But I see that some of you guys don't even want to take the time to find out. And it had gotten to the place that I was taking phone call after phone call after phone call from the same person saying the same thing, the same thing. And then I stopped that. Because I'm like, if I'm talking and you ain't listening, why I'm talking?
Miss Bruno, can I just give this little example for the ones that don't believe what you're trying to teach them? A person can be incarcerated, and behind that wall, for whoever's listening, for the female that's listening that don't want to believe that post incarceration is real, because it is. That person can be behind that wall talking to you on the phone, and they're the strongest person ever, and you feel that that person is your strength. But what you don't understand is that they're crying on the inside. So when you get them in front of you, or when they're released and they're standing in front of you, the person that they say that they love and you love them, and you want them to find safety in you, that all that's within them, all that is on the inside of them, begins to leak out. And because you don't know what you're looking at, it can either cause you hurt, harm, danger, or death. There's no way around it. So get the knowledge and the wisdom from the formerly incarcerated, impacted people that are on this line that are telling you that this what they went through. Get the information from Miss Bruno. She's telling you her life experience. Why does experience have to be your teacher? Why? Because it will cause you death, hurt, harm, or danger. And you have people giving you the wisdom, the knowledge, the intel, showing you the warning signs to help you. Why not take the help?
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Tammy. So John, we're gonna let John come in, but Tito, I see you have a comment here talking about where you found your peace in Ag 6. So after John, I want you to talk to us about that, okay? So John, I met John at the Caravans unit some years ago. So John, just come in, tell us about how many times you've been in prison, how long you did, how long you have been out, and did your prison experience affect you, and also did it affect your family?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say I'd like to thank Ms. Bruno for allowing me this opportunity to come on and share. I've been to prison 7 times. I was probably 16 when I first went to prison. When I first went to prison, they still had building attendants and turnkeys. They were just doing away with them. When I first rolled up on Ferguson, as soon as I stepped off the bus, it was about get down time. Because when you come around that wall, either you was going to get on or you was going to be put down. You know, I immediately realized that at that instance, I stepped into a world that was inside of a world. It's a world like none other. And you had to immediately adapt, change, and learn how to fit in. You had to learn what was going on quickly. Because back then, I remember when officers would come, and by 12 o'clock, they was turning their badge in. Because back then, you didn't get no case for fighting. It was just it was a write-up or whatever. Now, you get a charge. Back then, when I first went, Hey, if a law got out of line, say, man, take that toast off, step down. I'm gonna see what kind of man you are. That's the type of time when I did time. That's how it was. This last trip, I did 10 flat. You speak about post incarceration, man. I've experienced it. I've been home right now probably 3 years, a little over 3 years. When I first came home, I didn't realize that I dealt with that. The wife that I'm with now, thank God that she's been there. Been together over 30 plus years, going on 40 years. Been right there by my side. When I came home, I began to realize that I was doing things that I didn't normally do. And I was acting a way that I normally did not act. She would bring things to my attention and I would tell her, nah, man, you tripping. That ain't me. But I had to get in touch with me to realize that the things that I went through in prison, I had brought home. And I had to learn how to live in society all over again. See, you don't just come home and immediately adapt to society. You learn how to adapt to society all over again. Because in prison, there's so much disrespect, you don't know how to give respect. See, and I understand that I'm not for sure your name, ma'am, but where you were at, that's how it went at times. See, when I first started doing time, even in the counties, it was rough, it was raw. In the P form, it was rough and it was raw. You know, it wasn't about, you didn't give no respect. It wasn't no respect. Now, they got it's completely different. Everything is different. But we as men, and we do, whether we won't admit it or not, we'll tell it. We'll feed a woman or our woman what we feel that she wants to hear in order to keep her where she's at. Coming home, those are not our intentions because I've gotten conditioned to the environment that I'm living in. That, as my brother said, there's no trust. I don't trust. I didn't trust my wife when I first came home. This is a woman that I've been with over almost 40 years. I didn't trust her. To an extent, I did, but I didn't have full trust. And see, that's what you go through coming out of prison. A lot of people don't want to realize that. They don't want to face that. They don't want to understand that. And they come home with that controlling mentality. And we come home with that mentality of saying, I'm the man. It's gonna be my way or no way. That's how we come home. And we don't even realize that until it's really brought to our attention. So
Aggressiveness.
uh, I encourage anyone that's tuning in, especially for the women. When you got a man, your boyfriend, your husband, whoever he claims to be to you, my advice to you is to sit back and check him out. My advice to you is to sit back and really don't listen to his conversation, but hear what he's saying. See, it's a difference in listening and hearing. Because, see, we can listen to something and still miss it. But when I'm hearing what you're saying, I'm catching everything. And I'm able to read what you're about to do. So I encourage every woman that's on here, man, pay close attention. Pay close attention. You know
Yeah.
how he was before he left. Now he's come home. Pay attention to his actions. Pay attention to what he's saying. Pay attention to the people he's hanging around. Pay attention to him isolating himself. You must pay attention to these things because all of these are signs of not only PTS, but it's a sign of arrested development.
He's going through
Because
stuff.
you got one that's come home and he's 40, 50 years old, but he's still walking around with his pants sagging
And
Yeah.
his best
and
friend
thinking
20
he's
at
18,
50.
19 years
No,
old.
his best friend 20 and he 50.
Yeah.
You know something wrong with that.
And his homeboy, his Akon Boone, is 18 years old. Say,
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
check that.
Yeah.
I'm just
Okay.
being
Yeah.
real with you.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. A man that's been gone that long or a man of that age has no business sagging.
Right.
Yet you
Right.
got brothers 50, 60 years old running around here sagging, thinking that they still hip. Come on, man, it's time to grow up.
Yeah. So
Time to
thank you, John.
understand responsibilities. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for sharing, John. I tear up a little bit when John was talking because I know John and I know his story. So we're gonna come back, Tito. I want you to talk about what you put in the post. But let me share something with you guys. And the reason why I asked the question about how they were when they went in, because Kevin said I had to become a monster. He said, he was scared. Although 6'3", he was scared. He said, and I had to become a monster. And he said that he talked to one of his relatives one day, and they say, "Man, we hear you down there tearing up everything down there, right?" And unfortunately, when he come home, although he in the last 18 something years or whatever, he really started to work on himself. But unfortunately, that person, that monster per se that he was feeding, all of those behaviors just didn't come off. So I'm saying that to say this. I want you guys to pay attention to this. So some of you guys, and if you ask them, if they're honest enough, yeah, they were scared, so they put on this mask, like, I ain't to be messed with. Don't come for me, all of that. So they have that mask. And then they come out. So they come out to a society where they got to put another mask on saying, I'm all right. Prison ain't affecting me. I'm good. I can handle it. All of this. So they're wearing double masks. So can you imagine having to deal with that? Can you even imagine having to deal with a person that has on a mask that was formed in prison for survival, and then he has on another mask so that he can survive through what society puts him through, because society sometimes is unforgiving. So family members, I want you guys to get this. And if you guys have any questions, put your questions in the chat. I'm going to post them. If you have a question for one of the Pacific panelists, just put that there, and I'm gonna post it in the chat. And then we're gonna talk to Tito, and I want to come back because Mataka talked about emotion. I want to talk about what's known as emotional over control. So Tito, take it away.
Yeah, no, I'll try and make it quick. So, just to paint a picture, this is back in 2003-ish, before cell phones were popular in prison. I was one of the first people in California to get caught with one, but I literally could get anything I wanted. I ran the block I was in. We were drinking Pruno every day, just smoking cigars, but like, we ran it. And someone dropped a kite on me, and I ended up going to AdSeg for the phone because it was escape paraphernalia back then. Did 6 months during the summer in Vacaville, which is not fun. 110 degrees, no AC. But I'll tell you, it was like the turning point, because I'm sitting in there and they take everything from you. So I had Game Boy, iPod, all kinds of junk, and they took all that. And so I went from having everything you could possibly want in prison to nothing except some boxers and a couple of t-shirts, and I was at peace. Like I locked into just dealing with myself and anything I could get to read, and I really realized, like, I don't need anything. I don't need anyone. It was a great thing in prison, but that trait sticks with me because anytime something bad happens, I just want to go, like, I mean, I could pull my wife in here right now. She'll tell you, like, there's been times I'm like, leave. Like, I will start over. It ain't the first time, probably won't be the last. And then I regret it later because I'm like, that's hurtful. But I'm just like, it's a thing, right? It's I learned that, and I started meditating and doing all that other stuff, like to kind of come to grips with who I am and what I need. And at the end of the day, like, I got out of prison and I was in that rat race of, oh my God, like, I lost 12 years of my life. Everyone else got this head start. I got to catch up to everyone. So I was going crazy, just trying to climb the corporate ladder and do all this stuff. And then I'm like, but at the same time, I don't care. I'll give it all up today if I feel like I'm in the right and you're in the wrong. Like, you can take all this. I do not care. And I just showed you all my beautiful daughter. Like, now I think about her, I'm like, I can't jump to that quick, but I cannot shake it. I cannot shake it.
Yeah. So I just want to. Someone said here, and I just want to this is a disclaimer that I normally make because we're not naive to think that prison makes everybody a monster, right? You know, it's like when you have this conversation, some people expect you to say, well, not this one and not that one. Well, I'm not picking out everybody. I'm not picking out. I'm going to address the whole issue. If the shoe fit, wear it. And if the shoe don't fit, don't wear it. But I'm not going to sit here and say who's for this. This is for this person. This again. If it applies to you, it does. Take the information. If it doesn't apply to you, then okay. Because I've had women to say, not my man, oh, not my man, only to call me later, right? So all of this, for you to think that we're saying everybody that comes out of prison is a monster, I ain't gonna say what I'm gonna say. But no, we're not picking out and saying this happened. No, we're talking about a mental disorder. Look, when I did that 12 panelists, Lester Young said it best. Lester, were you affected by prison? He said, can you stand in the rain and not get wet? So those that say they went to prison and they wasn't affected, that's a sign right there.
Miss
All right.
I just want to say just like two things real quick. Number one, of course, know everybody that come, because I ain't no monster, right, at all. Ain't no doubt. None of my brothers is monsters. I got some guys who came home and done some what would be considered monstrous stuff, right? However, I'm regaining my humanity. If I was a person, right, if I was a person who was having symptoms and I was getting sick and I went to the doctor and the doctor said, okay, you're a diabetic. And as a result of that, you have to make some adjustments. He's going to equip me with this knowledge. I'm going to make these necessary adjustments so that I can have the healthiest life possible. That's the same thing we're doing here, right? We disseminating information so that people can have the knowledge and the skills and the resources to be able to help build thriving, healthy family structures. Right. And so that's what we're doing. Sometimes it may come off a certain way, but this is not a dire prediction of the failure of every relationship that comes out of prison. This is insight and equipping, the equipping of skills to be able to help us, if we truly love each other, navigate through that and come out on the best side shining. That's one thing. Number two, brother, Mr. Alexander, I feel you, right? However, you got dudes in prison like me. I met my daughter's mom while I was in prison. Everything I told her was absolutely true because I was and I am still that same person. However, that's why it's a mental health issue. You don't know what's happening to you and you don't discover until you get out. I wasn't lying. I wasn't misleading. I was strong. It's a lot of brothers who I was responsible for influencing and influenced me. I lived that. I did my absolute best to be a good leader for them. However, unbeknownst to me, stuff was happening to me. And I wouldn't realize the seriousness of it until I left the prison environment because I was absolutely telling the truth, right? I ain't trying to game nobody up. I ain't do that. I grew up under Malcolm X. So I'm trying to deliver this information, put this out, be the example of it and all that, right? However, when I got out that penitentiary though, right, I encountered some stuff that I was not ready for because I was healing on one end and then being poisoned on the other. And so when I came out, right, the healing me was still trying to live while the poison me was being triggered by things in society because I couldn't recognize what was going on. And so again, right, this is about the giving of skills and knowledge through sharing experience so that we as a group of people can have the information necessary to produce healthy families. Listen, people come home from prison in relationships and they make it. And if you really love somebody, then you're going to invest the time, effort, energy, and whatever's necessary to make sure that you do your best so that relationship can be successful. That's what this is.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
look, Mataka is just as passionate about this conversation as I am. I because my thing is, like I said, I could be doing something else. And every time, like I share with Dr. Timmy, every time I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to let everybody handle their own business. I'm going to go and do me something else. But every time then there's this phone call or there's this DM, not only from women, but system impacted men saying, sis keeps talking about this. I'm struggling. My wife told me how aggressive I am. I wasn't aware that I was so aggressive. It's a necessary conversation. It's a
Yes.
necessary conversation. And I see people come home full of pride. They want to show you. I want to show you prison ain't mess with me. I want to show you this, that, and other. Trying to prove something to society instead of recognizing there's something wrong with you and go and fix the problem. You waste all of this time trying to prove. This is not what this is about here. Trust
Mhm.
and believe that. This is so that family members can be educated so that you can recognize the signs, you can recognize the symptoms. Not only that, family members, so you can begin to look at your behavior.
Man, come on, Miss Bruno, because trauma meeting trauma ain't no healthy recipe. A lot of these women single when you meet them, right? This is what I learned. A lot of these women single when you meet them, right, in a penitentiary setting, because they got some issues going on up out on the streets, and can't nobody handle that. And so that's the reality, man. I learned that. That is nothing. I learned that through watching relationships in prison, having different relationships myself. A lot of times people on the street ain't gonna deal with that stuff. So they turn to dudes in prison because they know that they can hide. So a lot of times it don't just be the guys. People bring their own trauma. That's why we gotta know adverse child experiences. We gotta know all this stuff because, man, we live in a society where trauma is normalized. Like everybody got some type of trauma. But Miss Bruno, this is it and I'm gone. You act like you want it, like you can't quit, Miss Bruno. And I'm gonna tell you something you told me. This is something you told me personally. I ain't gonna put no names on it, but I'm assured. Somebody say, "Hey, you be doing too much. You spend too much time at your job." You know what you told me? You said this ain't no job. This a calling. You said that this ain't no job. This a calling.
Let me tell you, Mataka, I'll tell you.
You can't quit.
I really can't. I really can't. But it don't keep me from like feeling like it sometimes because you guys don't really understand it, especially now. Like I was sharing with Dr. Tammy, I feel like we have turned the corner. In 2018, I was saying, "Hey, post-incarceration syndrome. Hey, was nobody talking? Nobody was having this conversation. Now I feel like we're turning the corner because there are, like I said, there are professional psychologists, psychiatrists, professors, pardon and parole staff, and DOC staff are coming forth now, wanting to have this conversation, wanting to know more. So it took 5 years to turn that counter, but I am happy to say that we're turning the corner. We're making progress, and not only is this the same behavior, different zip codes, but it's the same behavior, different countries. Just recently, somebody from the Philippines reached out to me, right? Going to Alaska.
That's how you know your calling is worldwide, Ms. Bruno. It's
Oh,
worldwide.
can I say this?
And look at that lady, Miss Trisha Turner's comment when you get done, Miss Bruno.
Here's the problem. It's just like having an automobile. You've been driving that vehicle for so long, the check engine light is on, but you don't want to take it to the shop because you're comfortable driving that vehicle the way it is. Society has become so comfortable with not wanting to know truth that they don't take it to the shop. They're not trying to look at it and assess the problem. They're
Yeah,
all right where they are.
yeah,
And that's what happens a lot of times. We have we're just like a vehicle, man. The check
yeah,
engine light is on, but I don't want to take it to the shop. Because to me it's still running good. It's just a check engine light. It's not gonna stop. It's still taking me from point A to point B. So I'm okay.
yeah.
When we're really not. And even us as men, we're not okay and we're afraid to go get checked. Especially,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna say it this way, especially our culture. Because when we talk about going to get some professional help, man, I ain't crazy. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I don't need no help. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You the
Yeah.
main one that need help. But because of the way most of us was our upbringing, you're not gonna go get it. You're not gonna do it.
Miss Bruno, I wanted to say this real quick. One of the biggest effects that I see of corrections, and most people don't even acknowledge this, but it's true anyway. Corrections is a field that is reactive versus proactive. And it can know that it has a problem, but it's not a problem until it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that the problem has not been acknowledged, but now it's a problem. It was a problem back then,
Mm-hmm.
but now, because of trauma informed care,
Mm-hmm.
because of more money being poured from the government into programs like substance abuse, which is usually a result of post incarceration because people want to deaden the pain. Now they have to look at the big picture. And like I said, it's not that it wasn't a problem before, because problems just don't spring up overnight.
Right. We see them
Problems
coming.
have roots, and this thing has a deep lying root. And the thing that you're doing is you've removed the weeds, and it's a process. And although, like I told you before, 5, the number of grace, it took 5 years to dig that ground, the grow, to plow up that fallow ground, to remove those weeds so that you could see the roots, so that you can deal with the root of the problem. It's good to deal with the branches and cut them off. But if you don't deal with the root, you don't kill the beast. So you can't give up. You can't quit. All of those that don't want it, this is my philosophy. It always has been, always will be. I'm not everybody's cup of coffee or tea, and I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Those that are supposed to be there and listen, Miss Bruno, they will come. Those that are not, it's not their season. To
Mm-hmm.
everything, there is a season, a time, and a purpose. It is your timing to fulfill your purpose. And those that are supposed to be there, they'll reap the benefits. And those that are not, they'll come along when they come along. And for Mr. Tito, I applaud you for saying something, because you said a few minutes ago, you know that it's hurtful when you made that turn, when you said that to your wife. And I'm sitting here and I'm smiling and I'm getting ready to relinquish the mic, but I got to say this to you. In life coach, I'm a certified life coach. One of the things that they teach you is they talk about limiting beliefs. And all of your success and all of the great accolades that you have about your life, you still have that limiting belief of fear that it's one day going to be taken from you, or you got to release you, it's going to leave you. Because if you didn't and you were truly healed, that wouldn't be a statement. So my encouragement to you is to work on that limiting belief, because it's proof positive. It is proof positive. I'm sitting here looking at y'all. It's proof positive that when you make up your mind, that there's nothing no stronger than a made up mind. And everybody that is sitting in front of me on this Zoom call, I'm encouraged myself, because you made it past something that was given to you. And I say given to you, your sentences that were meant to destroy you. And I'm looking at, if I was a betting person, I would bet all black on every last one of y'all,
Mm-hmm.
because you're sitting here and you're showing me that you're winners.
Yes.
Even in the midst of failures, defeats, fears, hurt, disappointment, you still won. You still won. I I could slide, and I'm not a better, but I could slide those poker chips over on your spot and know that I'm gonna come away with a harvest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to say that
Mhm.
everything was
You know,
good.
yeah, you know what? I love these guys, and I've watched them. And the thing that I love about them, and it's some other system impacted citizens that have reached out, and we're gonna have them on the panel. But I love the fact that I mean they're in my DMs say, sis, keep talking about this, sis, keep talking about this, sis. So they are open to the conversation. So to address this question, Miss Bruno, did your healing start after you got your divorce? No, it did not. It was in the process. It was in the process. When Kevin and I were separated, I kept working. I kept working. Kevin called me one day. I think it was after we had gotten a divorce. Divorce was final, and he called me and he said, "I'm so proud of you." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because you never stop." And I said, one thing about it, I know it's not about me. Sometimes I get tired, yeah. But I do know that this was after years of praying and crying, God, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? I know this is, I know this is it. And it may not be for everybody. I'm good with that. I'm good if this conversation is not for everybody, because it was my prayer when I started. Lord, if just one would get it and understand. But I have this message has reached over 100,000 people. And so I know it's not about me. So to answer your question, when I started serving others, that's when my healing came. That's when my
Ms.
healing.
Bruno, can you ask? It's a therapist that asked a question in there
Okay.
about a support group and what could that and then Zaki Taylor asked about some solutions.
Okay. Good. Good. Good.
The
Good. So
therapist
I'm
lady
glad.
asked. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
No. Okay. So I'm glad the solution part came up. Let me see.
You see the therapist. She said, where is it at? Let me
Let me
look for it.
listen up
She
here.
says, my question is for the gentleman uh, who have actually dealt with PICS. I'm a clinician, and our social workers association has started a PICS support group, and we're struggling with getting folks to the group. Um, I've been a therapist for over 15 years, and I can't. Oh, I need my glasses. I've treated returning
What's her
citizens,
name?
so I know. Yeah, her name is
What,
Trisha Turner. Said we
Trisha?
hear a lot of "I'm okay." Now, I know as a therapist, you got to know trauma informed care is extremely important, and trust and safety are the two pillar cornerstones of that. And that deals with building relationships. For a person to go into a situation, a lot of times, Miss Turner, therapists are associated with the institution that's causing the harm, right? Not just the people who. So depending on, a lot of us have been diagnosed by mental health professionals, and that has started in a lot of ways the school to prison pipeline. Prison doubles as a mental health facility, even though it's incarceration. So what happens is people become associated with the entity, right? Just think about dudes who had social workers in prison. All of this, people associated with the system. So when people see you as an extension of something that is acted oppressively toward them, you ain't gonna get no cooperation and participation. That's why it's important to let people who have gone through the process. You got Brother Adero, you got Mr. Anderson, and you got Mr. Guerrero. Like, these guys know how to establish good relationships and build trust. When you build trust, people are open to receiving new information that can help transform them. Relationships and building trust. I ain't finna go into no group led by no psychiatrist who ain't never been to prison trying to have no post-incarceration syndrome group. Are you observing me? This is a safe space. I need to be able to process. And so I don't want to be feel like I'm up under surveillance or you observing me to extract data so you can put it in the form of a book and give it to somebody. No, I need to feel safe if I'm gonna process. I'm sorry, that's me. That's just
No,
my
no.
perspective.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what I've heard. A lot of guys said, they can't help me if they have not been through that. However, I have to say, now Kevin had two. He went to two therapists. The first one, he said, "Nah, she can't do it for me." But that second one, and I don't think she had ever been to prison, but she was heavy trauma. She specialized in heavy trauma, and so he liked her. So but the thing is finding someone that you can really, really trust and open up to. So I wanted to address this. I agree that prison affects everyone dealing with the system, and you guys are doing well to point that out. But what are the solutions to the problem? Okay.
For me, Miss Bruno,
Uh-huh.
it goes to me. The first thing is communication. You know what I'm saying? Communication has started and ruined almost every relationship that I've talked with other returning citizens about. It seems like we all have the same issue, and it starts with communication. And I shared in the group is how our significant others or our spouses ask us about our day. You can ask questions that sounds, I don't know, something that sounds like it's an accusation or like it's, you know what I'm saying, inquisitory, like somebody being a parole officer or somebody being a correction officer. So stop asking questions like where you go today, what did you do, like those questions automatically put our defenses up. You know, like you're not my parole officer. So start asking. So first, I would suggest the significant other and the spouse share your day. Say, hey, babe, I would like to share my day with you, and then share your day. Then turn around and say, how would you like to share your day? It's just how you go about asking a question to get a response to stop these certain triggers that we have coming out of incarceration. What, when, where, and why. You sound like a PPO or even like a correction officer. Where you going? Where you been? Who you been with? Who is that? What? My defense is gonna go up, and now I see you as a problem. So learn how to communicate first. So how to open up, having open-ended questions. You know what I'm saying? I would teach people like learn how to do motivational interviewing. They teach you how to communicate because you can't let people who've been behind the walls start building up walls on the outside.
So Mr. Taylor, okay, so when he says what's the solution, so we're gonna round robin the room, and this is my thing, and this is what I, and correct me if I'm wrong. Are you asking what's the solution for picks overall, or what's the solution between someone who's in a relationship with someone who's coming out of prison? And I did I put this up this let me see, for Miss Tiffany. So she supervisor and conditionally released, and I can tell you this message is spoken on daily to the individuals I'm working with pre and post relief as well as the officers. Sheila's tennis ball will forever be on my back. We will change the narrative and change lives. So Tiffany was at a conference in Florida that I spoke at in April, and I have an illustration. And one day I'm gonna show it. I ain't gonna show it now, but I think it's such an eye opener to really, so people can get a visual of what all of this trauma looks like, right? So Tiffany, I appreciate you. She has said that it's changed the way that she works with her clients, and she's now, educating her clients' family members on picks and sending them towards wife after prison. My thing is this, guys, as we wrap up, you cannot talk about reentry without talking about family. You can't do it. You ain't got no reentry program if you ain't talking about family. You ain't got it. You don't have it. If these reentry programs ain't talking about family, they're not the reentry program for you. Point blank, the end. Right? And so the solution, because ever since I heard this brother cry out, he said, "What's the solution?" That question has just been plaguing me, plaguing me, plaguing me. Lord, what's the solution? What's the solution? My thing is this. First thing is awareness. Because if I go to the doctor and he walk out the room, and he come back and he tell me he got to operate on me, I want to know what's wrong. And if you can't tell me what's wrong, doctor, you ain't operating on me. My thing is this. First thing is awareness. We have got to continue to talk about pigs. We have got to continue to share stories. We have to. This is why we're here today. Because although at times I wanted to stop, I didn't stop. Even through a divorce, even through a depression, even through eating sleeping pill, taking sleeping pill, and drinking Moscato, I didn't stop. Right? So, and I say to the ladies in the group sometimes, you guys got to come out of these groups, whatever. You got to be bold enough to come out here and share your story, because what y'all fail to realize, some of that what y'all going through, y'all think it's about you. It ain't really about you. It's about somebody that needs to hear your story. So my thing is this. First thing is awareness. We have to raise awareness of it. And once we raise awareness of it, some people are going to be denying. Some system impacted citizens, they're going to be denial. Denial is dangerous, right? But for those who want to know, you got awareness, then you have acceptance, right? And then you have to take action. And you got to see what works. If a therapist don't work, try a support group. If a support don't work, try some other avenues. But I believe whoever that sits in front of someone who has been to prison, and they want to help them, they're going to have to go back to the basics. They're going to have to understand trauma, and they're going to have to know what it's like to be in prison. And so that's the goal also, is to educate those like the parole officer. We have to educate them. You see, she was like, okay, I'm gonna do things differently now, because she saw it in a different light. So we have to educate them. We have to talk to the judge. We got to talk to the jury. We got to talk to everybody that has ears to hear. We got to keep talking about it. So I believe once we keep talking about it, then the solution, we almost there, y'all. We almost there. But one thing Tito say on his, I'm coming for you, Mataka. One thing that Tito says on his lives every day is be the change that you want to see. Be the change that you want to see. We did not have time to tap into emotions and what emotions over control is. I think a lot of people who are in prison, they have these emotions. They either they have them bottled up inside, and when they bottle them up inside so tight, there's emotional over control. There's over controlled emotions, y'all. Right? And they're going to come out. So we're going to keep having these conversations. I'm going to have my guests go around the room, give everybody a chance to say some closing remarks. But I'm going to say this. I have my book. I'm giving my book away for free. The only thing that you have to pay is $7.99 for me to get that package and me to ship it out to you. You got to be willing to invest. You got to be willing to invest. If you invest in this information, you may not have to invest in some tears. But if you want a copy, you just have to go to my website, wifeafterprison.org. I got it for free. All you have to do is pay $7.99 for shipping and handling. Okay, so we're going to go around the room and just whatever you guys want to bless the family members with, different zip code, same behavior, just give them some encouraging words so, we can help the people. We just want to help the people. So whoever wants to go first.
Yes, thank you again, Ms. Bruno, for another great show. Good to meet you, Dr. Tammy, as well, Mataka and Tito. Good being with you guys again. Yes, just continue to love on your loved ones, but do it with awareness, as Ms. Bruno says. You have to have that awareness, as well as just like change the way you question your loved ones who are coming out of incarceration. Don't sound so accusatory or like you don't trust them and things like that. And as well, Miss Latara Smith and anyone else, yes, I am available for one-on-ones. You can reach me on Facebook Andrew L. Glass, and also on Indeed as well. I'm always willing to share because this information just had to go out. We have to, saying make sure people are successful. And most people, one of the reasons guys return to prison is because they don't feel accepted, and they feel a lot of pressure. Family don't know, and we'll talk about that probably at another show too. The pressures that family put on guys when they come home. So thank you everybody. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for y'all questions. And Miss Bruno gonna get with y'all, and y'all gonna learn some stuff. So thank
We
you,
gonna
Miss Bruno, and continue to teach.
we
Continue to
gonna teach
teach.
the people. Dr. Tammy,
Yes, I
Dr.
just
Tammy should close us out. She did her,
okay,
she giving
we
us
let
inspiration.
okay, let
Yeah, close
okay,
us out, Dr. Tammy.
let Dr. Tammy close
Close
out.
us out.
Okay, what Mataka, you got 3 minutes, two
Okay,
minutes.
real quick, man. I just wanted to say something to Zaki Taylor. He said, overall, because you guys aren't giving any solutions to the problems, and we know people who just talk about the problems are the problems. Talking about the problems is raising awareness, right? That's part of the education. The very first thing people need to do in order to change is grasp new information. Right. And so that's what we're doing. We providing information. These are the beginning stages. We laying the foundations because this is a growing movement and the awareness is growing. And so what we're doing is attempting to educate people. And so the plan is through education. When we use words like, okay, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that's a tool and a skill, or a tool to allow us to assess levels of trauma that we've experienced. Do we take the test? So it's more than just us talking. Like, we offer resources. When Tosca's on her, she offers resources. The thing is, are we following up with the resources? Because this is what I know too. Sometimes, man, we want somebody else to do all the work for us. It's easy that way. It's easy that way. And so my thing is, the very first stage of transformation deals with the dissemination of information. It's education. That's what we're doing right here. You got experts. We bringing in a whole bunch of different stuff. We talking about trauma that deals with emotions. I'm gonna give you a certain. So I co-facilitate domestic violence classes. We, out of 27 weeks, they only allowed to use the word happy one time, and we talk about highs, lows, and feelings every week because men don't have an emotional vocabulary. Some of us don't even know that anger is a secondary emotion. Right? We just think it happens so fast because of the way we've been conditioned. We go from 0 to 100. We miss all the other steps in between. And so just letting us know what an emotional vocabulary looks like, how anger is a secondary emotion, and how we can interrupt the process of getting to the erupting point by identifying emotions. These skills we given, brother. So it just takes time. You ain't gonna get it all in one session, but we doing it though.
Yeah, and let me say this to Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, if you care to get more resources, please visit my website, www.wifeafterprison.org. There's a resource tab that
You
has
should
there
you
has
should have them on her. You should have Mr.
Yeah.
Taylor on her.
Oh, he know better. He know
Yeah,
better.
hey, listen, we know Mr. Taylor, Miss Bruno. We know Mr. Taylor. That's our brother. You should have him on here.
well, yeah, we got to come right now, come right. But yeah, so on my website, there's a page. There's downloadables. I encourage you guys do the work because the thing is, you got to do the work. We can give you information all day long, and we're giving you information. If you don't do work, ain't nothing gonna happen. Ain't nothing gonna happen. But on my website, there are downloadables, tools that you can use. Send them to your loved one. You do the work yourself. So we ain't just talking about the problem. We are providing some resources. Now, what they say about you can take him to the well, but you can't make him drink. Okay, let's go, Mr. Tito.
Hey, just thanks again for having me, Ms. Bruno and Dr. Tammy. Great to get on here with you finally, and Mataka and Adara. Once again, always a pleasure. I just want to resonate some of the things other people said instead of saying my own thing. I'll say it's mine for the end, but communication, 100%, and communication is a two-way street. So if you're not getting it from the individual that just got released, you got to probe and you got to be there. Ms. Bruno said it really good. Like, what are you investing in, right? Like, are you investing the time, the energy, right? If you're gonna be dealing with someone who came out of this environment right here, you got to be willing to invest the time because they just invested a crap load of time wherever they were at, and they trying to break chains mentally, emotionally, and physically. You know, when we get out, and like I'm an executive now, and most people don't even know I was in prison. And so, like, if one of them were to chime in on one of these, they'd be like, "What? You were what? Like, oh my god." Um, so don't think like people talked about those masks. I put them on every day, and you know it's reality. But then I'm very passionate. That's why I love taking part in things like this. That's why I got a transitional house out in California and everything still. But you know, I'm gonna leave it with what Miss Bruno said. Like I post literally every day. Be the change. Like be the person you needed yesterday because you might not be around tomorrow. So, you know, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm gonna keep showing up whenever I can and showing out. And thank you for allowing me on your lovely platform. As always, anytime. Thank you.
Anytime. I thank you. Thank you. Dr. Tammy.
So, in closing, I'll say this. I want to say to the formerly impacted individuals that are up here, the females and the males, and the juveniles, if there's some up here. There's a 4 letter word, there's a lot of 4 letter words, but there's one that is so powerful that if you say it, it can break the chains in your life, and it's help. It doesn't make you weak, it does not make you vulnerable, but it does open you up to listen, to receive, to give, and to be poured into. The only thing that can stop your healing is a closed mouth. My mother used to say it, and I'm from North Carolina, if you couldn't tell. But my mother used to tell us a closed mouth never gets fed. If you can just say those 4 letters, help, somebody's listening, somebody's watching, and somebody is willing to help. It may not be the person that you want the help from because they may not be equipped to give you what it is you need. But there's someone, if you just open your mouth and say help, that is equipped. It may be the person standing on the corner that can give you that word of encouragement and direct you to someone or to some type of resource to get you where you need to be. But if you don't open your mouth and say help, no one is coming. That's number one. And number two, you're not weak. Working in a culture of corrections, there is a culture within a culture. You heard the gentleman here say that. And people that are formerly incarcerated, and women too, they feel that they have to be tough beyond reason. It does not make you weak to say help. Why die on the inside when all you had to do was open your mouth? Why carry that pain when all you have to do is open your mouth? Why die in silence when all you have to do is open your mouth? You have resources in these gentlemen that are up here. You have resources in Miss Sheila Bruno. Hit their inboxes, write them, reach out. If you don't want anybody to know who you are, hit them in the DMs, as the young people say. But don't suffer in silence. Help is on the way. So I encourage the family members to do the same thing. Don't die from hurting and become angry and bitter. And why me? with your mouth closed. Reach out to someone and get some help. Don't go to your complaining girlfriend because
Mhm.
she's going through the same thing you are. Go to someone that is not going to take your side, but will give you an optimistic view of what you're going through. And if you need help, they'll say, look, you need to run and get some help. Do what you need to do to heal. That's what this program was for. It's not to judge you. It's not to point our fingers and say, well, if I was you, because the truth of the matter is, we were you. That's how we can talk about it. So, beautiful people, I leave you with this word of encouragement. If you're still standing, it's because you're more than a conqueror. You're not a conqueror. It's easy to conquer, but if you're still standing in the midst of all you're standing under, you're more than a conqueror. And I salute you.
Thank you, Dr. Tammy. So I'm going to say this, guys. I remember one time Kevin said to me, he said, he said, I'm so sorry that I pulled you into this messed up life of mine. And of course, I wish you guys well in your relationships. But if you guys decide that you're better apart, it's my hope that you guys can remain friends. It doesn't have to be ugly. If he's not physically abusive to you, he's just going through some things that he may not be able or be ready to deal with it, don't know how to process it, or scared to let all of that stuff come up. As guys have said to me, if I pull all this stuff up and I give it to a therapist and she can't help me with it, then I'm stuck. It's stuck in my throat. And so a lot of them are afraid of that. And so if you find or he find that he says the same thing to you as Kevin said to me, I'm sorry that I pulled you into this messed up life of mine. Don't be mad at it. Initially, I was so angry with Kevin. I was so angry with him. But it's when I got the information, y'all. It's when I started educating myself that I couldn't be mad at him. I could not be mad at him for something he couldn't process. So the best thing that we did for one another is to go our separate ways. And you deal with whatever you have to deal with. And I'm going to deal with whatever I have to deal with. And we can still remain friends. I love that dude. I really do. That's my homeboy. Yeah. So if you guys find out in your relationships, I don't want you to be angry with them. I don't want you to be angry with them, because if you are, you'll never heal. And you have to forgive where it hurts. But if you see in your relationship, or if he comes to you and he said, I can't do it, you got to go through the pain, but you will heal. You will definitely heal. And my thing is this: get into serving others. Get into serving others. So many of you have stories. Get into serving others. If you are hurting right now, I dare you to start serving. Until my parole officer, Miss Tiffany, you blessed my life today. When I got that message from you, you really, really blessed my life. It touched me to know that there's one probation officer, parole officer out there that said, I want to be a change. I want to make a difference. Because whether we realize it or not, staff members who are in relationship with system impacted citizens, they go through the same thing. I remember one time I was speaking at the orientation for some guys that were coming home, and afterwards, the parole supervisor asked me, could she talk to me? And she pulled me into another room. Y'all, and she said, ma'am, she said, I'm living that right now. She said, my husband was in prison for 19 years. She said, I never heard of post-incarceration syndrome. She said, but everything that you spoke about is what I'm going through. Right? And so we're going to have to learn to be kind to one another. A lot of times we want to beat up on corrections. Now, we know that there's some tainted correction officers or whatever, but there are some who are working for DOC and other departments that they may be battling some of the same things we're battling in. I hope that we said something that was enlightening to you today, as well as encouraging. But we came together to let you know that you're not by yourself, that our loved ones are coming home with some of the same behaviors, but in different zip codes, because a lot of times we think that we're the only one. But most importantly, I can't stress this enough, is to educate yourself so you won't be caught off guard like Kevin and I was, and so many others. So we love you. We appreciate you letting us take the time to educate you. All I can say is keep coming back. Keep coming back. I love you guys, and thank you to my guests for always coming through when I call you. I love each of you. And so until next time, we'll see you later.
Peace out.
Stay on board.
Salute.
Y'all stay there for a minute.